My name is Taylor. I'm 28 years old. Last Christmas, my mother stood at the table. She raised her glass, her voice cutting through air. And then she said the words that broke me. We're ashamed of you. The clink of silverware froze in midair. Even the old clock seemed to stop ticking. I'd spent weeks telling myself this Christmas would heal. Traditions, lights, the smell of pie could fix us. But in one moment, I knew I was wrong. And that wasn't even the cruelest part. Growing up in Millbrook, Ohio, I thought we were perfect. Church on Sundays, barbecue smoke drifting through our backyard. Christmas photos in matching sweaters, smiles frozen in frames. Dad worked 30 years at the plant. Mom stayed home, raised me and Dennis. Dennis, the golden child. Younger but always brighter. Scholarships, trophies, the son they bragged about to neighbors. Every mistake I made echoed louder than his victories. He was the pride. I was the problem. I married Mark, hoping love would prove I was enough. 6 years of dinner parties and spotless apartments. All a mask. Behind closed doors, silence grew heavier than walls themselves. I found his texts with Sarah, a coworker, late-night secrets. When I confronted him, he called me needy, dramatic. He refused counseling. Said I exaggerated. I filed for divorce. Mark fought over everything. Savings, furniture, even the coffee maker. By the end, I was broke, emptied, surviving on fumes. I moved above Henderson's bakery, 400 square feet. The rent was discounted if I balanced the books. It smelled like cinnamon every morning, and it was mine. And my family? No hugs, no "are you okay?" Only questions. What did I do wrong? Why didn't I fight? Meanwhile, Dennis got engaged to Patricia, the prodigy doctor. Her surgeon father, her elegant mother, their perfect reputation. Patricia was everything they wanted me to be. Still, I tried. I wrapped thoughtful gifts with borrowed hope. A vintage tool set for Dad, an ornament for Mom, a frame for Dennis and Patricia's engagement photos. And my secret, an exciting new job in Dayton. A salary increase, a bigger apartment, proof I was rebuilding. I thought Christmas might be redemption, not humiliation. I thought maybe this year, I'd finally measure up. But I had no idea how invisible I'd soon become. The week before Christmas, Mom called with her plan. She sounded cheerful, but every name she listed cut. Aunt Geraldine, Uncle Roger, Cousin Craig, the new law partner, and Patricia's parents, the doctor and his elegant wife. This wasn't a family holiday. It was a performance. I pressed my best dress, wrapped gifts with shaking hands. In the mirror, I practiced how I'd share my news. Maybe this year I thought they'd finally see me. The farmhouse sparkled like a postcard, garland wrapping the porch. Dennis opened the door, polished and glowing with success. Patricia appeared behind him, cream dress flowing, pearls shining. "Linda, you made it," Dennis said warmly but briefly. Patricia smiled. "That color looks good on you." It sounded like surprise that anything could suit me. Inside, conversation roared louder than the Christmas music. Dad debated surgery with Dr. Thompson, voices booming. Craig leaned by the fire, glass in hand, posture smug. So, small-town life after the city. Must be humbling. Every word sounded like a cross-examination. Then Dennis and Patricia announced their wedding plans. Tuscany, June 15th. A villa overlooking the hills. The room erupted. Phones flashed vineyard photos like trophies. Mom clasped her hands. How exciting for all of us. The assumption cut. Italy was never in my budget. I clapped anyway, smiled through stiff lips, and waited. When the noise quieted, I took my chance. I've been offered a senior coordinator position in Dayton. More responsibility, better pay. A real step forward. The response? A few nods, a polite, "that's nice." Then the spotlight swung right back to Tuscany. At dinner, Craig bragged about defending corporations from lawsuits. Uncle Roger nodded like his son had saved the world. Patricia described dress shopping in Chicago boutiques. Mom sighed wistfully, as if she'd missed her chance. I remembered my rushed wedding, department store lace. Talk shifted to honeymoons. Greece, yachts, champagne on turquoise water. Each word widened the gulf between their world and mine. When Aunt Geraldine asked about my job again, I tried. "They're growing fast. I'll manage accounts myself." "That's nice, dear," she said, tone meant for a child. Roger leaned closer. "Stability matters. New companies vanish overnight." Dr. Thompson added, "New isn't always better." My excitement deflated like a punctured balloon. Then Craig mentioned house hunting. Exclusive neighborhood, 3-car garage. The table leaned in, fascinated by square footage and schools. My apartment above a bakery felt like shame. Dennis tried to help. Linda's always been great with people, but it sounded like pity, not pride. A ribbon for surviving, not for winning. The message was clear. My life wasn't good enough. And when dessert arrived, so did the verdict that would break me. Dessert arrived, the smell of Mom's apple pie filling air. Beside it sat Patricia's pastries. Elegant, flawless, expensive. Forks clinked, glasses refilled, and conversation turned philosophical. Dr. Thompson leaned forward, voice calm but sharp as a scalpel. By your late 20s, you should know your direction. Life is choices, and choices have consequences. Mrs. Thompson nodded, adding, commitment means never giving up. They weren't looking at the room. They were looking at me. Craig joined in, his tone smug with courtroom certainty. In law, problems disappear if you work hard enough. Persistence separates winners from quitters. Uncle Roger raised his glass in agreement. Every eye shifted toward me, the unspoken verdict clear. I whispered, sometimes leaving takes more courage than staying. The table froze. Mom's jaw tightened. Dad looked away. Dennis cleared his throat, desperate to change the subject. Let's keep it positive, it's Christmas. But Mom wasn't done. Her voice sliced across the room. No, Dennis, this conversation needs to happen. She stood, lifted her glass, her gaze sweeping like a blade. Her eyes glistened in candlelight, not with tears but judgment. Then she spoke. Steady, merciless, unforgettable. We're ashamed of you. The words landed heavier than any court order, any divorce. The room tilted. My breath caught, my body recoiled. And then came laughter. First nervous, then bolder, sharper. Dennis chuckled, then smirked, his voice cruel. Maybe Mom's right. Maybe you needed to hear it. Craig shook his head, laughing softly like at a deposition win. Even Uncle Roger let out a short, approving chuckle. Their joy at my humiliation burned hotter than the fireplace. Mom pressed on, emboldened by their support. You're 28, divorced, living like a college dropout. Look at Dennis, look at Patricia, look at Craig, and then look at you. Do you realize what embarrassment this is? I scanned the table, searching for one sympathetic face. Dad cleared his throat, muttered, your mother's right. Patricia squeezed Dennis's hand, expression carefully polite. No one defended me, not one. The clock ticked in the hallway, each second pounding louder. For years, I'd swallowed every critique, carried every disappointed sigh. But something shifted in my chest, not shame, fire. If they wanted truth, I would give them truth. And when I opened my mouth, their perfect world shattered. The room was silent, heavy as stone. I stood slowly, and every smirk disappeared. You're ashamed of me? My voice was steady. Then listen carefully. Let me show you shame. I turned to Mom first, her lipstick perfect, her eyes cold. Shame is a mother sneaking around with her tennis coach. Do you think a 12-year-old doesn't notice late-night texts? Or wonder why Richard vanished to Florida overnight? Her face drained of color, fork frozen midair. I shifted to Dad, his hand gripping his glass too tight. And shame is a father drinking himself to sleep every night. Bottles hidden in the garage behind Christmas boxes. Whiskey breath when you tucked me in, thinking I didn't know. His glass slipped, clinking against the plate. He said nothing. Then I faced Dennis, my so-called golden brother. Should I tell Patricia about sophomore year? Jennifer Morrison, you begged me to cover your cheating. Or should I tell her about last month? When you called crying, saying you felt trapped? Saying marriage felt like the biggest mistake of your life? Patricia's hand slid from his. Her eyes went sharp. Dennis's face turned pale, lips moving without words. I looked at the guests, their polished faces rigid. You want to talk about shame? I asked them. Shame is eating at someone's table while tearing down their child. It's clapping while a family humiliates their own blood. Dr. Thompson straightened, his wife clutching her purse tighter. Even Craig looked rattled, the lawyer without an argument. My voice grew stronger with every sentence. I divorced a man who betrayed me instead of living a lie. I chose honesty over appearances, truth over convenience. And you call that shame? I call that survival. The chandelier light trembled across silver and crystal. I picked up my coat, my purse, my pride. I'd rather be the disappointment in this family than the puppet in a play built on lies. The silence was complete. Mom's tears spilled unchecked. Dad stared at his plate. Dennis shook under Patricia's glare. The so-called perfect family lay shattered before me. At the door I paused, voice calm but final. You're ashamed of me? Good, I'm proud of it. And then I walked out, leaving them with the wreckage. But what came after that night would change everything again. The cold air hit me as I stepped outside. Snowflakes clung to my hair, the world strangely quiet. Behind me, voices rose in chaos, but I kept walking. For the first time in years, my steps felt free. I drove back to my tiny apartment above the bakery. From the street, its windows glowed faintly against the night. It wasn't grand. It wasn't polished. But it was mine. Inside smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread, warm and honest. No judgment, no comparisons, no audience waiting to laugh. I sat on the couch, shaking with adrenaline and relief. For so long, I'd begged for approval I'd never receive. But leaving that house, I realized the truth. Freedom doesn't come from winning their love. It comes from refusing their control. The next morning, Christmas Day, I chose something different. Instead of waiting for apologies that might never come, I volunteered at the shelter, serving meals to strangers. And for the first time in years, I felt useful. Not because of money, or status, or comparison, but because kindness needed no resume. People smiled, grateful for hot food and warm voices. No one asked about my divorce or my career. They saw me as I was, not as I failed. Weeks turned into months. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. The new job in Dayton grew into opportunity. I made friends who valued honesty over performance. I even began to love again, slowly, carefully. This time with someone who saw me, not my image. Looking back, that Christmas was both the worst and best. It destroyed illusions, but it gave me clarity. Sometimes family isn't blood. It's the people who lift you, the ones who stay when others turn their backs. So now I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. Proud of my small apartment, my steady work, my honest voice. Proud that I chose truth over pretense. Have you ever had a moment that forced you awake? A moment that broke you, but also set you free? Share it in the comments. I promise you're not alone. And if this story touched you, subscribe for more. Because strength isn't built in silence. It's built in telling the truth.